It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully, you've had a nice start to your week. It is Hump Day. Wednesday, Pacers Knicks starts tonight, a rematch of last year's second round series, another playoff edition of this Pacers versus Knicks rivalry. I can't wait. Game starts at 8 o'clock tonight. That sounds correct. It's that or 8:30. Yeah, I'm so juiced up for this game. And it's mainly because I think that the Pacers are going to win this game tonight. I feel pretty confident about it because the Pacers, first and foremost, I think are very simply the better basketball team. By the way, the game tonight starts at 8 o'clock. The Pacers are 4.5-point underdogs. That's, less of a line than, what they were against the Cavaliers. They were like consistently 7.5-point dogs in that series. But the reason why I like the Pacers to win tonight is because of how unique they are. I think there is a very short list of NBA teams that I would classify as unique. I really think there's only two. I think it's the Pacers and the Warriors. A lot of NBA teams set up their offense pretty similarly. When you play the Thunder, you know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to have the ball 85% of the time that he's on the floor. You know that he's going to initiate the offense, probably with a ball screen. And when he's not doing that, it goes to their second best player, Jalen Williams. He initiates the offense the other 15% of the time, probably with a ball screen, more than likely from Chet Holmgren or Isaiah Hartenstein. That is how the Thunder run their offense. And when you watch the Knicks play tonight, it's going to be something pretty similar. Jalen Brunson is going to initiate 90% of the offense because he's the Knicks' best player. It's probably going to start with the ball screen from Karl Anthony Towns or Mitchell Robinson. When you watched the Minnesota Timberwolves play last night, you knew that Anthony Edwards was going to have the ball a lot and initiate the offense. And when it wasn't him, it was probably going to be Julius Randle because he's their second best player. That is how 90% of the teams in the NBA operate. Who is our best player? Let's give him a ball screen, and let's allow him to make plays coming off of that ball screen. That is how most of the teams in the NBA operate. And so when you're defending off the ball, it's like, oh, this guy is just going to stand in the corner for the next 24 seconds. Sounds great. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to stand right beside him, and I'm going to watch the ball. It's going to be awesome. Like, this guy's not going to, backdoor cut me. He's going to stand here because spacing is king in the NBA. The Pacers do not play that way. When you play the Pacers, you know what they're going to do. Tyrese Halliburton, yes, he's going to initiate the offense, but it's not always with the ball screen. It is so much more than a pick and roll or a pick and pop read followed by a shot. The Pacers reverse the basketball. They set screens off the ball. Guys cut and move constantly. It is so unique to every other team in the NBA and the way that they run their offense. And, I think that if you just asked people that watched basketball, I think they would agree that the Pacers style is very unique. You only play against this style of basketball when you play against the Pacers. Whereas 90% of the NBA looks similar. Their best player initiates everything. And I better recover to shooters quickly. That is a major oversimplification of what 90% of the NBA does. And so when you go from playing, the Thunder to the Timberwolves after you played the Lakers, it's like, oh, you guys are all doing a similar thing. There's obviously slight variances based on personnel, but I know what you're going to look like, just like the Pacers. They played the Bucks in the first round, where you knew that Giannis and Damian Lillard were going to initiate all of the offense for the Bucks, and then they played the Cavaliers, and they knew that Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell were going to initiate, 95% of the offense for Cleveland. You knew that Jared Allen or Evan Mobley was going to set the screen on the ball. Like, you knew it. And now they're going to play the Knicks, who are going to do something incredibly similar. And for the Knicks, their path is different from the Pacers. Like, they're actually going to see variation in what they are defending. And when you play a different style, when you play the Pacers and this very unique team, not only with how they play offense, but also with how they play defense, they're going to pick you up 94 feet. There was this relentless ball pressure. It is unique to every other team in the NBA. And because of that, I think it takes teams in the playoffs a game to adjust to playing against the Indiana Pacers. And I know that the Knicks have been watching film on the Pacers for the past several days, and, that's great. Watching and actually competing against something unique it's two completely different things. It's like playing against the Warriors. You can sit on your butt and you can watch how the Warriors run all these off-ball screens for Steph Curry and how Draymond Green and Steph play off each other so well. And you go, okay, I know exactly what they're going to do. And then all of a sudden, game one comes around and you're having to actually defend Steph. And you're like, oh, wow, this is very different than watching it on film. It takes teams a game to adjust to the Golden State Warriors and how they play because they're very unique. I think the exact same thing applies with the Indiana Pacers. And because of that, I expect for the Pacers to win tonight. I think part of why they beat the Cavaliers in game one pretty handily, they hung 121 points on them, and they generated a ton of open looks. I think it was because it's like the first round of a boxing match. You have to feel out the style, and you have to actually be in the ring to get kind of a grip on it. And then game two of Cavaliers and Pacers was a much better, much closer game where it seemed like the Cavaliers had figured some things out until the final, 3 minutes of that game. Same thing against the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. They scored 117 points. They won by 20. I think tonight we see a huge offensive game from the Pacers. I think they score over 120 points, and I think that powers them to a game one win. Being unique, it's a really good thing, especially in the NBA when no one else plays like you do. I think it's a very, very nice advantage for the Pacers to have in these playoffs. Now, the only way that the Pacers win tonight is if Tyrese Halliburton continues to be the guy, because that's what he is. He's not a guy. He's the guy for this Indiana Pacers team. And I am so excited to watch Tyrese Halliburton play in this game tonight because the game's in Madison Square Garden. And Tyrese Halliburton has a flair for the dramatic, doing the big balls dance after hitting the game winner on the road against the Cavaliers. Last year, after they eliminated the Knicks, he wore a shirt with Reggie Miller doing the choking symbol at the press conference. After he hit the game winner against the Bucks, he jumped up on the table and did the whole rah crowd thing. He's got a flair for that kind of stuff, and I think that it comes from the fact that he grew up a big WWE wrestling fan. And so because of that, he's just got a nice little swagger to him when things go in his direction. He just knows how to properly celebrate in a manner with which draws attention. I think it's part of why people don't like him, because he grew up watching the WWE, and the WWE does an excellent job of creating villains and doing those types of things and really maximizing whoever their villain is. I think Tyrese Halliburton has done an excellent job. He is a villain in New York. There are definitely going to be overrated chants tonight because New Yorkers don't like Tyrese Halliburton. And I think that that's great. And I think he's going to go crazy tonight. And part of that, it just feels right. It's the biggest stage in basketball. The last time he played a playoff game there, he scored 26 points, shot 58% from the field, and sent the Knicks home in that game 7. So I think he's going to have a big night tonight. There's no analytical data backing that. I just think that he's Tyrese Halliburton. He has a flair for the dramatic. And what better place to have a flair for the dramatic than Madison Square Garden? And I don't think that this is a big Tyrese Halliburton game in terms of he scores 30 points like he did in Game 5 against the Cavaliers. I think this is going to be a big Tyrese Halliburton game. And a big Tyrese Halliburton game is he scores somewhere between 15 and 20 points, and he has 12 assists or more. I think he's just going to be awesome. I think this extended rest period is really good for teams like the Pacers and got players like Tyrese Halliburton. Because for some people, obviously, like there's physical rest, which is really nice. But the Pacers are, I think, one of the most intelligent teams in the NBA in terms of the players that they have on the floor, in terms of knowing when to cut, how to cut. Tyrese Halliburton, his ability to read and think 3 steps ahead of wherever the defense is it's really what makes him elite. And having, a week off or however long it's been, to not only rest physically, but also to rest mentally, I think that really kind of helps the Pacers a little bit more. But with that being said, I do have questions. I do have things about this Game 1 matchup that I find very intriguing. Okay, the biggest question that I have is, how are the Pacers going to defend Jalen Brunson? He's the Knicks' best player, obviously. We all know that. He's going to have the ball all the time. And if Andrew Nembhard is able to defend him, the Pacers will win this series, because it just makes everything else easier for the Pacers if Andrew Nembhard is able to be the primary guy on Jalen Brunson. Now, last year, it was brutal. It did not go very well. And if it winds up having to be Aaron Nesmith defending Jalen Brunson, then you're going to have Andrew Nembhard defend, Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby, and we do not want that. That's a size advantage for New York, and it's just, it would not be good. It would not be good at all. Andrew Nembhard has improved as a defender from last year to this year. And so I think he has a chance to actually be the guy who defends Jalen Brunson in this series. Jalen Brunson chewed him up and spat him out last year. He got whatever he wanted body type wise. I don't think that Andrew Nembhard is the desired guy that you would want defending Jalen Brunson, because Jalen Brunson's just really good at getting into people's bodies and then bumping them off to create, just enough space for him to fade away and get a good shot off. So Aaron Nesmith is probably the more desirable guy just because he's longer and he can play a little further away from Brunson. But if Andrew Nembhard can just find a way to survive, like he doesn't have to be great. Jalen Brunson is going to get his, because he's Jalen Brunson. He's one of the 10 best players in the league. He's the best player in this series. But if Andrew Nembhard can just find a way to do just enough, can he be good enough so that the Pacers don't have to switch the matchup if they decide to start that way? They could just be like, you know what? We're not even going to mess around with the idea of Andrew Nembhard. We feel like his strength on Mikal Bridges will actually make that kind of tough for Mikal. He'll be able to get up underneath him. And maybe they just start with Aaron Nesmith on Jalen Brunson. But if they start with Nembhard, I really hope that it sticks. I'm also intrigued to see how the Indiana Pacers are going to go about attacking Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. The Knicks have a reputation as a good defensive team, and they should, because Mitchell Robinson off the bench can guard. Josh Hart is a plus defender, and then you have Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, 2 of the best wing defenders in the NBA. You can make a very strong argument that they are the 2 best wing defenders in the NBA. But Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson can't guard me. Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't defend the rim. He does rebound well, but he can't really defend the rim, and Jalen Brunson is extremely undersized. Neither one of those guys are good defenders, and the Pacers are going to make them guard because they make everybody guard. It's what makes them unique. Like, there is no possession where Jalen Brunson is going to guard a shooter and just stand in the corner for 25 seconds. Like that's not going to happen because everyone is moving, everyone is cutting, everyone is screening. And we saw the Knicks very willingly switch everything against Boston. And if they do that in this series, which I think is very, very possible, will the Pacers attack them in a similar fashion to how they attacked Jared Allen when he got switched onto Pascal Siakam or Tyrese Halliburton? Like if you get Karl Anthony Towns switched onto Halliburton, are they just going to kind of do what they did against Cleveland, stop the possession and let Halliburton create a good look? Or if, Jalen Brunson gets switched onto Pascal Siakam, are they going to stop the possession and let Pascal Siakam post up like they did against Cleveland when Darius Garland would get switched onto Pascal Siakam? So how are the Pacers going to go about kind of picking at the 2 weak spots of this New York Knicks defense? And then I'm very curious to see how deep Rick Carlisle is willing to go into his bench. He had games against the Bucks and Cavaliers where 11 players played real minutes. I'm not talking about the Pacers are up 20 with, a minute left to go and he empties the bench. No. He had games where like Jarris Walker is the 11th guy. Like he would play 7 meaningful minutes in the third quarter when the Pacers were barely up or barely down trying to get back in it. So does he play all 11? Does he shorten the rotation at all? Or does he continue to play all 11 guys? Because that's who this Pacers team is. They are deep. They run. But at the same time, I think he's going to shorten it a little bit. I think I don't know. I think we're going to see, 9 guys. I don't know if we'll quite get to 10. I think that if the Pacers had a long series prior to this, then we would have seen 10 or 11. But since you've had all this extra time off, I think we see him shorten the rotation a little bit. Like, I don't think we see much of Ben Shepherd or Jarris Walker in this series. We'll have to wait and see. We know that Coach Carlisle loves Ben Shepherd. That's why he's played 13 minutes a game in the 8 games that he's played in this series. But we'll see. There's 11 guys on this Pacers roster, or 12 guys on this Pacers roster, averaging 9.5 minutes per game or more so far in these playoffs. So Coach Carlisle likes to play a lot of guys. I'll be very interested to see if he continues going with that strategy, knowing that, the Knicks are going to play the top end of their roster pretty much all game. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, Pacers Knicks tonight at 8 o'clock. Zach Pereles of CBS Sports, he's going to join the show at 11, and we're going to continue to talk about this series. But a list came out. I have an affinity for lists. I very much enjoy them. And it was a quarterbacks ranking list where PFF ranked the 32 projected starting quarterbacks from best to worst. Our guy Anthony Richardson was on the list. If you're watching on YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe, comments where you think Anthony Richardson was ranked. I've got it. I've got thoughts on where he's ranked, and I'm going to give them to you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe watch it on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me and watch the show there, you can also listen via the Indy Sports Ticket app, not only to my show, but also the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3. And if you want more from me, you can also go check out the My Take Is YouTube page. Now, Anthony Richardson, according to PFF, is the 30th best starting quarterback in the NFL. We got many, many good guesses over on the YouTube page. Once again, Indy Sports Ticket. Head over there. Subscribe. Ridger. Got it right. Good job, Ridger. And, oh, man. It's the perfect spot for him. It's where it should be. Here is the very short, 1.5 paragraphs on why, whoever wrote this article for PFF ranked Anthony Richardson 30th. Quote, Richardson could arguably be slotted in Tier 5, which is this tier about young quarterbacks who are still developing, as he's yet to complete a full healthy season since entering the NFL. But the concerns go beyond durability. His grading profile is poor, and he struggles to run an efficient offense, read defenses, and deliver the ball accurately. In fact, his accuracy ranks among the worst in the league. Who would have thought? Only completed 47% of his passes. With Daniel Jones waiting in the wings, Richardson faces an uphill battle and could be on a short leash if early season improvement does not materialize. Well, yeah, that's why they brought in, Daniel Jones. Just love the insight there from PFF. He could be benched for Daniel Jones. Oh, really? Who would have thought? Who would have guessed? But this ranking is 1,000% justified. I'm sure there's some media people here in Indianapolis who would disagree with that. I got to be honest, though, I'm kind of surprised he's not last. Mason Rudolph and Tyler Shuck, or Show, however you say it. Tyler Shuck was a second-round pick by the Saints. Derek Carr retired, so he's now projected to be the starter. Those are the two quarterbacks that rank below him. Mason Rudolph, he is terrible, all things considered, but at least, we've seen that guy play quarterback decently. Tyler Shuck has never taken an NFL snap, so I get why he's ranked below Richard. But those are the only two players ranked below Anthony Richardson. A career backup in Mason Rudolph that probably is going to be a backup again because that they're still holding out hope to bring in Aaron Rodgers. And if that happens, he's clearly going to be the starter. And then from there, Anthony Richardson gets bumped down to the 31st best starting quarterback in the NFL. And if, 4 weeks into the season, Tyler Shuck down there in good old New Orleans, if he figures it out, all of a sudden Anthony Richardson might be the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. So, it's just, it's brutal. Oh, man. And, that's where he should be, right? 30th is the right spot for him. If he was better than that, then Daniel Jones wouldn't be competing for the starting job with Anthony Richardson. I know that I make fun of every single video that the Colts Twitter page puts out of Anthony Richardson throwing the football. But they put out one, I think it was last week on Friday. They put one out, and it was stitched together. It was Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, and Riley Leonard, making different throws. The video's a minute long, and they're cutting from one to the next, to the next, to the next. It's really cool. Anthony Richardson is so much more talented than those guys. The ball just freaking explodes coming out of his hand, and there's extra zip on it. Some of the throws are in slow motion, and if you count rotations, I guarantee you that Anthony Richardson's football rotates much faster and much more often than Daniel Jones's and Riley Leonard's do. The dude he's got a freaking rocket launcher. And I hope he's the guy. I hope he's the dude because the talent just oozes out of that dude. It does. Ross Campbell asking who's first. Patrick Mahomes. Come on now. As of right now, though, Anthony Richardson, yeah, he's the guy, but he's not the guy. He's a guy who might be the starter. And when you're a guy who might be the starter, then you're ranked exactly where you should be, 30th. And like I said, you could argue that he should be ranked lower. You could argue he shouldn't be ranked at all because they're ranking the starting quarterbacks. And I know that there are some Colts fans out there that think that Daniel Jones is going to be the week 1 starter for the Indianapolis Colts this year. And you might be right about that. I still think it's going to be Anthony Richardson until we hear anything else. I am just assuming that it's going to be him. Okay. But after going through those rankings and seeing where everyone was at, I started to wonder after I just kind of came to grips with, the Colts have the 30th best starting quarterback in the NFL as their starter. After going through the rankings, I started to wonder, where would Anthony Richardson have to be? Like, where would he have to be ranked amongst the other NFL quarterbacks for me to feel good about the Colts making the playoffs? Where would he have to be? I think it's 15th. If Anthony Richardson can be the 15th best quarterback in the NFL this year, then the Colts will make the playoffs. I feel very confident about that. Kyler Murray's ranked 15th. CJ Stroud is 14th. Trevor Lawrence is 16th. Dak Prescott is 17th. And Baker Mayfield is ranked 13th. Like, those are the guys kind of somewhere around the 15th best quarterback in the NFL. These are all solid NFL starters. Like, if Kyler Murray's your starting quarterback, you're like, I don't hate that. If CJ Stroud is your starting quarterback, then you probably like that because he's, younger and he can still develop. If Trevor Lawrence is your starting quarterback, then you're like, this is fine. Do I like that I'm paying him $53 million a year? No, but, it's fine. He can run the offense. If Dak Prescott's your starting quarterback, then if you're Jerry Jones, you're related. But if you're anyone else, you're like, this is fine. Same thing goes for Baker Mayfield. If Anthony Richardson can just be an average NFL starter, someone that we feel okay with week in and week out, then the Colts are going to make the playoffs. There are a lot of good players on this roster. This roster is good enough to make the playoffs if Anthony Richardson can just be average. If he's average due to the fact that their schedule is relatively weak and their division is awful, then they can be the 6th or 7th seed in the AFC due to those two factors. Now, the next question that follows that, which will be asked by everybody, is what's average? What do we define as an average quarterback in the NFL? So here's where I have pinned down average. Can he throw for 3,500 yards? That's around 220 yards a game. Can he throw 20 touchdowns? Can he throw less than 10 interceptions? So that's a touchdown to interception ratio of a little over 2-1. Can he complete 63% of his passes? I think that if he can do that and be impactful on the ground like he was last year running the football, then he should be good enough for the Colts to make the playoffs because this division's awful and the schedule is not very tough. The Colts don't need him to be Superman. They don't need that. They just need him to be normal. Like, can he be Clark Kent? Can he be that? Can he just show up, do his job, complete passes on 3rd and 7, lower the shoulder and get into the end zone when he needs to in terms of his ability to run the ball? Can he do those things? Because if he can do that, then the Colts will make the playoffs. And Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, they will stick around for another year. Because when you have Jonathan Taylor, a guy who ran for 1,400 yards last year in 14 games, like the Colts ran the football well last year. When you have the ability to run the football like that, and you have the ability to be explosive in the passing game, because, Alec Pierce is going to stretch the field. That A.D. Mitchell, if he ever figures it out, like that's a guy who's very capable of making big plays. Then you got Michael Pittman Jr., who's going to work the middle of the field. And you got Josh Downs, who's capable of making big plays out of the slot. Like when you have All of that kind of put together. A good run game, receivers who can make plays after the catch, A.D. Mitchell, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. When you have all of that, like you don't need Patrick Mahomes to be your quarterback. Like you don't need that. You just need good. If you want to make the playoffs, obviously if you want to win playoff games and do all those types of things, then Anthony Richardson would have to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. But I'm not asking for that. It feels greedy, and I don't really want to be greedy. So those are my thoughts on Anthony Richardson. He's ranked the 30th best quarterback in the NFL, and that's exactly where he should be. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is the best player in the WNBA. I don't think that that's hyperbole. In only her second year, she's already tied the record for the most 20-point double-doubles in the history of the WNBA, and she's done it in 43 games. She has 10. She had another one last night, 27 points, 11 assists. And they lost. Fever now 1-1. They lost at home to the Atlanta Dream last night. And it's a frustrating loss because Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, all three of them were awesome. But no one else really wanted to score, and that's kind of problematic because you need everyone on your team to score. I'm going to butcher this name. Dewana Bonner, 16 minutes, 0 points. Natasha Howard, 29 minutes, 6 points, only 3 of 9 from the field. Lexi Hull played 29 minutes. She only took 4 shots. She only scored 6 points. Sydney Colson, 2 points in 6 minutes. Like, you have to get a little bit more production from your role players if you're going to want to win games. I don't know how good the Atlanta Dream are supposed to be, but I know that they had 4 players score 15 points or more. That matters. That's very helpful when you have that. Meanwhile, the Fever, Caitlin Clark with 27, Kelsey Mitchell with 24, Aaliyah Boston with 24. No one else had more than 6. No one else had more than 6. Like, you got to be better than that. You got to be better than that. So hopefully the Indiana Fever, the rest of their team can pick it up just a little bit. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Pacers Knicks is not the only playoff series going on. We've got Timberwolves and Thunder. That series started last night. Thunder in 7. I feel pretty good about that pick. And yes, especially after last night, the Thunder are so good. I hope they play the Pacers because I just think that series would be outstanding. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
It's not too late for a deep spring cleaning on your home. Give my friends at Zero Res a call today. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean for only $129 and take $75 off your air duct cleaning. Visit ZeroResIndy.com and tell them Indy Sports Ticket sent you.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice start to your week. It is Wednesday, hump day. And the Minnesota Timberwolves were unable to get over the hump last night and steal game one on the road against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are clearly the best team left. I can tell you, they've been the best team all year. And I can tell you right now, if the Pacers and Thunder both advance, I'm taking the Thunder because they are that good. And something happened last night that is very normal when you watch really any sporting event. The NFL, I guess not Major League Baseball because of how they do time, but hockey, whatever. When teams go into halftime, I think it's very rare, especially in the playoffs, where both teams can't find a way to feel good. You know, the team that's down has some sort of reason why they can come back. Like, hey, we got, some looks that we liked and, we just didn't make them. If we make them in the second half, then we'll be fine. And then the team with the lead obviously feels good because, one, they have the lead, but two, they can usually find some way to be better. Hey, I know we're up by 7, but, we turned the ball over a lot in that first half and we're still up. So if we can just stop turning the basketball over, then we'll be fine. And last night, hopefully you watched that Thunder and Timberwolves game because it was amazing. Timberwolves were up by 4 heading into halftime. I think both teams felt pretty good. The Timberwolves rebounded pretty well in the first half. It's part of why they were up by 4, even though they turned the ball over repeatedly. Now, they didn't continue to rebound well, and they did continue to turn it over. The Thunder actually out-rebounded the Timberwolves by 6 in the second half last night. And Oklahoma City was down by 4. And, they felt good going into the half. They're down by 4. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was only 2 of 13 from the field. Jalen Williams was 2 of 8. Chet Holmgren only had scored 2 points. So they had to feel good about where they were at. They were only 3 of 8 from 3. They had forced 11 turnovers. They scored 18 points off of them, which means that their defense was working. They just needed for their stars to start to score a little bit, right? They just needed their best players to make shots, and that usually happens in the NBA. And then the Timberwolves felt good because Anthony Edwards was only 3 of 7. He missed some time because of the ankle tweak that he had in that first quarter. Julius Randle had 20 points at half, so they had to feel good about where he was at. He had it working really well. Plus, they had the lead. So even though they turned the ball over 11 times, they still had, they were still up. And part of that was because they'd forced 9 turnovers, so it's not as big of a deal. And I'm sure that they thought that they could cut down on the turnovers that they had committed. But for me at halftime of the game last night, I just felt better about the Thunder because none of Minnesota's role players were making any shots. And this is the best thing about the Pacers. They have so many good role players that some of them are going to make shots. And then, you watch the Timberwolves last night. Like, Jaden Daniels had 5 points, but no one else had more than 3. Players not named Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle were 6 of 28 from the field at halftime. And I felt more confident in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams to score the ball more in the second half than I did Minnesota's role players. And that's exactly what happened in the third quarter. Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander got going. They put the ball in Jalen Williams' hands a little bit more since, they were just harassing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander the entire time. He was working his way up the floor. That allowed the Thunder to run better offense because their ball handler wasn't being harassed. And then the Thunder, after that first quarter, did a much better job rebounding the ball than Minnesota did. And then the stars for the Timberwolves just looked overwhelmed. Julius Randle didn't score in the third quarter. Anthony Edwards only scored 5 points in the third. Meanwhile, Chet Holmgren had 4. Jalen Williams scored 9, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 12. And then the biggest thing that I noticed in that game was the Timberwolves didn't have any role players to keep them afloat. Like Isaiah Hartenstein scored 10 points in the first half. That kept them in the game, even though Chet, SGA, and Jalen Williams all struggled. None of the role players for Minnesota really got going. And that, for the Pacers, is also something that is incredibly important. Like, which role player is going to get going tonight? Is it going to be Andrew Nembhard? Is he going to have a game where he shoots 3 of 6 from 3 and he's getting to the rim and he's doing that thing where he takes his shoulder and just rams it into people? Is it going to be him tonight? Is it going to be Miles Turner? Are the Knicks going to struggle to defend that Pacers pick and pop? And is Miles Turner going to shoot 4 of 7 from 3? And is he going to finish at the rim with some ferocity like we've seen him do a little bit in these playoffs? Is Benedict Mathurin going to come in off the bench and score 30 like he did against the Knicks earlier this season? Is TJ McConnell going to be the best version of TJ McConnell? Is he going to come in off the bench? Is he going to hit, all the little floaters that he takes? Is Obi Toppin going to continue to be a guy who scores, somewhere between 10 and 15 points off the bench? Like, who is that guy going to be for the Pacers tonight? Because I think that the Knicks are going to put Mikal Bridges on Tyrese Halliburton. And Mikal Bridges is an excellent defender, one of the best in the NBA. And Tyrese Halliburton is going to have stretches throughout this series where Mikal Bridges gets the best of him. And if and when that happens, who are the role players going to be that step up? Because the Knicks are going to put OG Anunoby on Pascal Siakam. And OG Anunoby, again, one of the best wing defenders in the NBA. Is it Aaron Nesmith? Is it TJ McConnell? Is it Andrew Nembhard? Who is the guy who is going to relieve some of that pressure off of, Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, and the rest of this Pacers offense when their 2 stars struggle? Because for the Timberwolves last night, that didn't happen. Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards were the only 2 players to get into double figures for Minnesota last night. No one shot well that actually took shots. Jaden McDaniels looked good early, but he only took 5 shots. Rudy Gobert only took 3. Mike Conley was 2 of 8. Naz Reid was 1 of 11. Dave Vincenzo was 3 of 14. Nikhil Alexander was 3 of 11. So on and so forth. And for the Pacers tonight, that can't happen. Like, they need for their role players to continue to shoot the basketball well. Okay? Like can they continue to do that? Because, like, Aaron Nesmith is just shooting lights out so far in this postseason. He's shooting, 50% from, he's shooting 48% from 3. Andrew Nembhard is shooting 50% from 3. Miles Turner's at 45% from 3. Jarris Walker's at 38% from 3. It's really interesting. Like, Tyrese Halliburton, a guy who's a career 39% three-point shooter, only shooting 34% from 3 in these playoffs, and it's really just because he got hot from 3 against Cleveland. Like, he's, water finds its level, and hopefully he's going to get back up to that, 39, 40% mark. So who's that guy going to be for the Pacers tonight to kind of keep them afloat if and when Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam go into a stretch where they struggle a little bit? The other thing about the Thunder last night, I really hope the Pacers play them. I really do, because I just think it would be so much fun to watch this Indiana Pacers offense take on this just super tough Oklahoma City Thunder defense. And because, like, if you watched that game last night, the Thunder made things near impossible on Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. Like, they just harassed them and made life so difficult. Like, Anthony Edwards only took 13 shots, and it was because Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso did an excellent job of just getting up into him and being tough. And they just made everything on Anthony Edwards so hard. And this Thunder defense is what allowed them to win that game. And people talk, and they ask this question all the time, like, how do you break down this Oklahoma City Thunder defense? And the answer is pretty simple. Quick dribbles and short attacks. Like, that's how you beat the Oklahoma City Thunder defense. Okay, and if you watched the game last night, then you know that the Timberwolves players struggled a ton because decisions were not made quickly. And, the Oklahoma City Thunder, their defense moves faster than any other defense in the NBA. It's the very simple reality of it, and it's why the Timberwolves turned the basketball over 19 times. Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle had 9 of them. Every time there was a second player anywhere near the ball when Julius Randle or Anthony Edwards had it, it felt like the result was a turnover. And when you play the Thunder, you have to read and react quickly, because if you don't, they're going to take the ball away from you. That's why the Timberwolves had 19 turnovers, and the Thunder are one of the best transition teams in the NBA. They scored 31 points off of those turnovers. Okay, like, you're not beating anyone if you give up that many points off of turnovers and if you turn the ball over 19 times. And in watching that game, it felt like, especially in the second half, when the Thunder really got it going and they outscored the Timberwolves 70-40, I thought in the second half, it just took Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle too long to make decisions, or they over-dribbled. Like that's how the Thunder beat everybody. Like, if you dribble the ball more than 3 times, just go ahead and just hand the ball to Oklahoma City. And this is my favorite thing about watching the Indiana Pacers. They very rarely over dribble. They almost always make very quick, fast decisions. Like when you watch the Pacers, they know where that ball is going before it hits their hands. They know that if Tyrese Halliburton makes a skip pass, or, he knows, like, if he hits Miles Turner, like, Miles Turner knows what he's doing. He knows whether or not he's going to take the 3. He knows whether or not he's going to pump fake and then go to the rim. Like they know what they're doing before anything else happens. And it's why they are so incredibly difficult to defend. It's why, of the 4 teams that have made the conference finals, it's why the Pacers have ran the best offense amongst the 4 so far through these playoffs. I mean, like, their offensive rating is like over 117, which is a lot. It's a lot of points to score per 100 possessions in the playoffs when defenses are more dialed in and defenses are making adjustments. And part of this is because the Pacers have shot the ball so incredibly well as a team, shooting, just under 41% from 3. But when you watch them play, it's because all their looks are good. Like, the Pacers generate more good looks offensively than any other team in the NBA. I mean, it's incredible what they do offensively. And it's because of how quickly they move the ball, how quickly they make decisions, and the fact that they never over dribble. That is the best thing about this offense. They never over dribble. And if you watched last night, over dribbling gets you into trouble, especially when you play against really good defensive teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I hope we get a Pacers and Thunder NBA Finals. I think that series would be so much fun, watching what has been hands down the best defense in these playoffs take on what has been the best offense in these playoffs. I think it'd be fascinating, and just as a pure basketball fan, I think that, yeah, it would just be so much fun to watch. And first, the Pacers have to get by the New York Knicks starting tonight. I like them to win this game. I think Tyrese Halliburton continues to play really well. I'm hoping that Game 5 against Cleveland kind of gets him back in his shooting rhythm, because, look, he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. That is the very simple reality of it when you go by the numbers. He's a career 39% shooter from 3. I get it. The form's a little weird. I'm sure that there's coaches out there who don't like his form. But me personally, I like his form because the shot goes in, almost 40% of the time. Like that is Steph Curry level stuff. And I am not out of line whenever I say that, because, they both take a ton of threes. Obviously, Steph Curry's are a little bit more difficult, but still. If you're taking somewhere around 10 threes a game, which I think Halliburton's somewhere between like 7 and 8, if you're taking that many threes a game and you're shooting 40%, like that's pretty freaking good. It is. And so hopefully Game 5 against Cleveland kind of continues on into the series, and we get this version of Tyrese Halliburton that you can't leave him open from 3, because everyone else that can shoot threes, like, they're making threes, except for Tyrese Halliburton. Everyone else is at 35% or better that you would expect to be, except for Tyrese Halliburton. So hopefully he can get it rolling and he can, not knock down some threes in this series because the Pacers are going to need them. When we come back here at 11 o'clock, Zach Pereles of CBS Sports, he's going to join the show. We're going to talk Pacers, Knicks, who he's got tonight, who he's got in the series. I'm sure we'll talk about the Thunder and the Timberwolves last night as well. Zach Pereles of CBS Sports joins the show when we come back here in about 4.5 minutes.
Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice start to your week. Pacers, Knicks, Game 1 tonight, 8 o'clock, TNT. Can't wait to watch that series unfold. And I know we're all very excited to watch Draymond Green be part of the coverage, which is fine, I guess. I'm excited to have Zach Pereles on to talk about this series and about the game last night as well between the Thunder and the Timberwolves. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm super excited for both of these series, and I think this can be a really, really fun Eastern Conference final.
I do too. Which series were you looking forward to more?
I think Pacers Knicks, to be honest. I just think I really think that they're both really good series. I really like all four teams that are left. I think that this one has more potential to be a 7-game series that we're talking about for a long time.
I hope not. Like the Pacers went in there and they won Game 7 on the road in Madison Square Garden last year, so they can do it. The idea of having to do it twice in a row just feels like a lot, So
definitely, I'd agree with that. But I think we're at least headed 6. I think that maybe in the Western Conference we're at most headed 6.
Yeah, the Western Conference is interesting just because the Thunder are just so good. But with Pacers and Knicks, I agree. I took the Pacers in 6. I think they win tonight. What are you kind of looking at, because everyone calls Game 1, like a feel-out game. What are some of the questions that you have kind of about the series that you're looking forward to being answered tonight?
Yeah, I think a big one for me to start is just how how the Knicks had to defend the Celtics is so different from how they'll have to defend the Pacers. The Celtics are this real isolation-heavy team, drive the ball, kick, shoot threes, or shoot a ton of threes off the dribble. The Pacers pass the ball like no other team that's left, and that's why their offense has been so good. So that's a huge adjustment for the Knicks to have to make, and I'm really interested to see how they do it because the Knicks really built themselves with the Celtics as their focus. We're going to get these two really good wings in Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby to be these two really good defenders against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and it really worked. We saw the Celtics offense really get bogged down late in the second half, but the Pacers are such a different challenge because they move the ball so well, and it's not like, I'm going to be really interested to see where those two guys go. I'd imagine one's on Tyrese Halliburton, but it's just such a different, you need less individual defending against the Pacers and more really, really good team defending, good communication on switches. And so the Knicks obviously did a great job against a really talented offensive team last round, but this is a completely different offensive scheme. And I'm really interested to see where Indiana can take advantage. I think that's my biggest thing is just people are like, oh, this Knicks defense did such a good job. They have so many good defenders. Yeah, they have a ton of really good individual defenders. I'm going to be really interested to see how their team defense and their communication and their reaction to switches and things like that plays out.
Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports. He writes a wonderful, wonderful newsletter talking a little bit of Pacers and Knicks. Zach, I am with you 1,000%. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, and I would love your take on it. I love taking teams like the Pacers and the Warriors to win in game 1s of series, just because I think that 90% of the NBA, the way that teams run offense, I think is relatively similar. Like when you play the Knicks, that Jalen Brunson's going to have the ball 90% of the time, and the offense is going to start with some sort of ball screen. And it's like the same thing for Minnesota. Like, that Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle are going to have the ball, and the offense is probably going to start with a ball screen. And I think most teams play that way. And then to your point, you play the Pacers. And that's just not how they run their offense at all. I think Golden State is very similar. And I think it takes teams to adjust to like, oh, you mean I don't just get to hide in the corner and defend this shooter who's not going to move for the next 20 seconds? All of a sudden, like, you're having to like defend guys that are cutting and screening off the ball. And like you said, you have to communicate. How big of an advantage do you think that is early in a series?
Yeah, I think that it's significant for sure. I think that the playoffs are all about adjustments, not only team to team, but throughout a series. And I think that you will see, you'll see the Knicks certainly make some adjustments, but early in the series, you kind of you're right. You do have to feel it out. I think Rick Carlisle is such a good coach, like incredibly smart offensive coach. The Pacers, we talk about how they play this 5-out offense, and the game is really beautiful, but they're also like, they're just killers when it comes to getting mismatches. So it's not just, it's so pretty, and it is really pretty, but it's also like, if you need it, they can go inside. They will take advantage. They will be pests defensively. So I think early on, it's a huge adjustment for New York. The big thing though, if your prophecy is going to come true, is can they defend Jalen Brunson? Because they haven't done a great job there historically. And I think that it's when games are close, these are the two best clutch scorers this postseason, in Brunson and Halliburton. And I think that's why it's going to be really fun.
I'm with you. That duel is going to be amazing. I can't wait to watch it. And you're bringing up how do they defend Brunson? Like, that is issue number one whenever you play New York. And I think the thing that makes it really interesting, especially this year, is I don't know if you remember, but last year the Pacers were like, Andrew Nembhard, we're going to put him on Brunson. And it just did not work. Like, Brunson scored 75 points in the first two games. The Pacers were like, you know what? Never mind. Aaron Nesmith, you're up. And he did a much better job just because he's taller and longer. And I think those are the kind of guys that you want defending Brunson. But if the Pacers have to go to that, then all of a sudden you've got Andrew Nembhard defending like Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby, maybe, kind of depending on how the Pacers want to do that. And I think that's one of the most important things in this series. Like, I feel like if Andrew Nembhard can just survive, because obviously, like, you're not going to stop Brunson, but if he can just survive defensively, defending Jalen Brunson, then I really like the Pacers in this series. But if he can't, then I think things become very problematic for Indiana really quickly defensively. What do you kind of think of that analysis?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a team-wide effort. I think it's going to be a bunch of guys, because you're right, Nembhard last year was not pretty at all. I do think that the big thing is you've got to mix and match your different looks against Jalen Brunson. Like, you want some length, you want some of that. You get the length of an Aaron Nesmith, then you get kind of the doggedness of a Nembhard or a TJ McConnell. But you're right, he's not a guy that's going to be stopped. And the biggest thing is, down the stretch of games, he is just so good. I wish that I could ask someone and get an honest answer from an athlete about like what changes late in games, because we've seen Jalen Brunson enter the fourth quarter shooting like 8 for 20, and then he goes like 5 for 5 in the fourth quarter, and it's just like, they're not easy shots. Is it just more focus? It's so interesting to me to see guys who just turn it on in the clutch. And so I do really think it's going to have to be a mix of different looks against Jalen Brunson. And you're going to have to hope, again, that maybe down the stretch of a close game, he misses a couple of shots. I wouldn't be super surprised, too, to see something like, a Nesmith on him, and then a Pascal Siakam as like a help defender or a guy who can kind of shade his way. I think that Pascal Siakam, he's not quite the individual defender he kind of was at the peak of his powers, but he is still a very good team defender. And like you mentioned with Nemhard, or like you mentioned with Neesmith, he has a ton of length as well. So I'm really interested to see that there. The thing about the Knicks that you mentioned is that this postseason, we talked about Bridges and Anunoby being these guys who were brought in for defense. They've had tremendous offensive stretches, like OG Anunoby shooting the ball, just really, really good. Mikal Bridges has had a couple of big fourth quarters, and that shot looks weird, but it works. So I really think that if it has to start with Brunson and limiting him, that's a good first step. But the biggest difference this year for the Knicks is that they have those wing guys who can score, and even Karl Anthony Towns. I know the scoring hasn't always been there, but he can be a guy who absolutely lights it up.
Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports talking Pacers and Knicks. Yeah, I love Towns. He hasn't shot it, or he didn't shoot it very well against Boston, but like you said, like that's a guy who can very easily score, and the Knicks just have more options this year. Last year it was like, we're going to give Brunson the ball and he's going to kind of do everything. Whereas just like you said, like you can go to OG Anunoby for short stretches. You can go to Bridges, or you can go to Towns. And so seeing how the Pacers try to defend them, I think, to me, like, it's every bit as interesting as how are the Knicks going to try to defend the Pacers. And I think, like, people are kind of talking about this, but I don't think that they're talking about it enough. I think pace in this series is such a big deal. The Knicks play really slow. I think they were 27th in pace during the regular season, and the Pacers were 7th. And so, like, the speed at which these two teams want to operate is going to be so important throughout the series, and not even from a, like, conditioning standpoint, because the Knicks were fine last year playing against, the Pacers in 7 games, just with the very fast pace. But I just think that with all the questions that I have defensively, or offensively for each of these teams, like, I just think that if the Pacers can run and just kind of dictate the pace and score and pressure Brunson for 94 feet, like, that is another aspect of the series that's really important. How do you think the Knicks go about trying to slow the game down?
Yeah, I think your first point is 100% right. Like, the Pacers have more depth. They play with more pace. Like, that could be a defining feature. There might be, a game 5, game 6, game 7, even where we just say the Knicks are out of gas, especially the way that Tom Thibodeau just plays his guys the entire time. The biggest thing for me, I think, and this kind of leads into, I can't believe I'm saying this, but what if I told you that Mitchell Robinson is a huge, huge part of this series? He is a guy.
Yeah.
The numbers, the box score numbers are not outrageous. 4.7 points, 8 rebounds, which for the minutes he plays, he just gobbles up rebounds. But he was so good for the Knicks in that series against the Celtics. Just his impact on both ends, extra possessions. You can't get out and run if you can't secure rebounds, and that's a big thing. On the other end, this is not really a series for him when it comes to Indiana's 5-out offense. He's not going to want to go, chase Miles Turner to the corner or things like that. So I'm really interested to see how he holds up defensively, and then can he be on the court long enough to help slow that game down by extending a couple of possessions. So, no player is perfect, and if he's on the court, like, the Pacers are going to hunt switches against him relentlessly, but how he holds up in those situations is really, really important, because they need him on the offensive glass. And they can go that 2 big lineup with him and Towns. So how much and how well Mitchell Robinson plays, I think, is going to be really, really key. And it's, this is a guy who doesn't play a ton of minutes, 20, 22 minutes a night in that Celtics series, but he has to play because the Knicks already only play, 7, maybe 8 guys, really just 7. So I'm really interested to see there, like, can he be a guy who holds up defensively? Can he hold up with the pace? And then can he survive long enough in those 2 aspects to maybe provide a couple extra possessions for New York which will help them not have to run up and down the court every, 15, 20 seconds.
Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports, talking Pacers Knicks. I think all your stuff on Mitchell Robinson is so true. And I'm going to whisper this. This isn't like a full proclamation, but is part of why Mitchell Robinson was so good in that series against Boston because Kristaps Porzingis couldn't really play. And I just think that, like, when you're having to defend, Luke Cornett or Al Horford, who are very good players, but also very different from Porzingis. Like, Al Horford can shoot it, but can't really put it on the deck and post up in the same way that Porzingis can. Luke Cornett, not really much of an offensive threat, which allows Mitchell Robinson to kind of hang out around the rim. Like, you brought up, him defending this 5-out stuff. Like, do we see his impact lessened a little bit because of how the Pacers run their offense and the spacing that they have with either Miles Turner or Thomas Bryant playing center?
Yeah, I think that is a really good point by you. Like, Kristaps Porzingis, people will talk about, obviously the Tatum injury is devastating, but Kristaps Porzingis not being basically a factor, for almost the entire year with this mystery illness, that was huge. And you're absolutely right. Like, he is such a different skill set than almost any, big man. And that did really help Mitchell Robinson's prospects. So yeah, I think you're right. I do think it's going to be a big Miles Turner series, like, especially when he gets that Mitchell Robinson matchup. And I do think that that's going to be a huge question for him because he was so good against the Celtics and they really, really needed him against the Celtics. So I'm interested in seeing that. And then the other thing is, because Indiana hunts all of these switches, I know it sounds simple, but it's a make or miss league, and nobody has made it better than the Pacers this postseason. I don't know what happens to Andrew Nembhard between the regular season and the postseason, but the guy, I think I saw 29% from three in the regular season, 50% this postseason on like legitimate volume too. So yeah, like, it sounds silly and I hate saying it, but the way that the NBA is now, like, you get these mismatches, you get these open threes, do you make them? And the Pacers have, and they're going to get good looks. Are they going to make them? Is it going to be, you talk about this first game being a feeling out process, but it's been a little bit since the Pacers have played. Are they going to come out? We've seen this with the Wolves before too, like big stretch in between series. Do they come out and are they a little rusty? Or, I would love to see, if you're a Pacers fan, if they come out and they are sharp and they have obviously a significant rest advantage, is that going to be a thing that if they have a strong first quarter, first half, they're able to really put the Knicks at a disadvantage early, and you see them coming out tonight with a 1-0 lead?
I mean, the Knicks haven't played in like 5 days either. So I think both teams are going to be pretty well rested. But I see your point. Like you said with the Wolves last night, none of their role players made shots. Like, they were 15 of 50 from three. That's not normal for them. And maybe we see that one way or the other tonight. But my thing with the Pacers, and a large part of why they're shooting 41% from three during the playoffs, let me know if you agree with this or not. I just think that they've generated better looks than everybody else. Like, I think that they get more easy looks at the basket, whether it's an open three or a layup right at the rim. I think they've gotten that in these playoffs more than any of the other teams left.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I do think that they do generate great looks, and they just do such a good job. I think this is where Rick Carlisle is probably underrated, is that he makes these adjustments. Like we talked about, these series are all about adjustments game to game, and they do all these different things. I think you saw the Cavaliers, they use that zone defense really well in one game. The next game they try to come out with it and it gets torched. Like, it was really just a Rick Carlisle masterclass. And you're right, they do get better looks because the ball movement's so good, but they also are making these better looks at really, really impressive rates. I think I was trying to find the numbers for how well they shoot on open threes, but they shoot it way better than any other team this postseason, which is obviously, you talk about their wide open threes and they're professional athletes, they should make them. It's not really always the case. But the Pacers have done it this postseason, absolutely. And I think that if they continue to do it, the Knicks are in big, big trouble.
Totally agree. Two more things, and I will let you go. Who do you like tonight, and who do you like in the series?
Tonight, I think I'll go Pacers tonight. I think I'll go it's a tough one. I think Pacers, if they win, it's going to be in 6. I don't think you want to go back to New York for a game 7. Let's go with the Pacers in 6.
Okay, that's where I'm at. I feel like the more I think about it, the better I feel about it, which is not normal. Usually, the more I think about a prediction, the worse I feel about it. I took the Thunder in 7. I feel pretty good about that after what happened last night. Who is your prediction in that series?
Yeah, I think Thunder. I would not be surprised if this one's pretty short, 5 or 6, honestly. I really do like what the Timberwolves do. At the end of the day, like, they just run out of offense a little bit too often. And I know that we talked about, I know that we saw in the last round, the Thunder, their half-court offense was not good, but I just think that they have a little bit more oomph. They have all this depth. Last night, like, Kenrich Williams comes in and plays a huge role. Like, this guy didn't play a single important minute against the Nuggets. All of a sudden, he's like, that guy is probably their 9th, 10th man, and he is playing a huge role in the stretch that turned the game on its head. So I'm probably I just think, like, the fact that Mark Daigneault can just throw a guy in and he can be a very good player. They probably have 4 guys on their bench that could start for a team in the NBA. So I just think too much depth, and obviously you add in the star power as well. So I think maybe 6, but honestly maybe 5 for the Thunder.
I like it. After last night, and I don't want to overreact because it is game 1, and teams are going to make adjustments, and I think that Chris Finch is a really good head coach, but I think you're right. Like, the Timberwolves don't have enough offense. Once again, joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports, talking Knicks, Pacers, and Timberwolves and Thunder. Like, the Timberwolves just, I think you're right. Like, they don't have enough offense, and the way that they run their offense, I just think kind of plays right into the hands of the Thunder. Like, I'm just convinced that if you have a player dribble the ball 4 times against the Thunder, you should just hand the Thunder the ball, because they're going to take it if you over dribble. And, like, honestly, I selfishly want to watch the Thunder play the Pacers in the finals, because I want to see how the Thunder deal with this offense that I think makes decisions quicker than every other offense in the NBA, because that seems like the best way to kind of break them down. And I don't think that the Timberwolves make decisions quickly whenever I watch them play offense. I feel like it always takes them like an extra hitch to make a pass or take a shot. And I think that the Thunder, they have the fastest defense in the NBA, and that extra hitch allows for the Thunder to close out and make things tough on you.
Yeah, 100%. The Thunder, like, everywhere, there are no defensive weaknesses, which it's just, in the playoffs, it becomes a question of your weaknesses and not always your strengths, because teams will hunt and hunt and hunt and find your weaknesses and exploit them. If you have a guy who can't shoot, teams will completely sag off of him and make you play 4-on-5. If you have, a guy who can't defend, teams will hunt those switches and go after him over and over again. The Thunder just don't have a weakness. Like, maybe you can say that offense gets a little stagnant, but on an individual level, all of their guys can really play.
They can. You're exactly right. And that's the thing. I think that you could make a real argument that the Pacers and the Thunder are the two deepest teams in the league, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the two deepest teams in the NBA have a pretty decent shot at making the finals.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, at the end of the day, how many answers do you have is always a big thing in the postseason. And the Pacers and the Thunder have had the most answers so far.
They have, and it's easier to have answers when you can play 11 guys like both the Thunder and the Pacers can. Zach, I said last question like 4 minutes ago, so I'm going to stop there because I'll just keep going. I always love having you on, man. I'm sure we'll have you on again here soon to keep talking about these series.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it.
You got it. So, yeah, that is Zach Pereles. You can check him out on Twitter at Zach_Pereles. He writes an outstanding newsletter for CBS Sports. I read it every morning, covers all the headlines, short, concise, good, thorough opinions as well. So make sure you go and check that out. When we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, Pacers, why they're going to win tonight against the New York Knicks. I've got the answer for you.
may one day be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
And monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. It's hump day. A nice little Wednesday for you. Pacers, Knicks tonight, 8 o'clock. I can't wait. I think the game's going to be awesome. I like the Pacers to win. They've got to get over this hump of winning on the road in New York. It's not really a hump because they did it last year, but I just want really an excuse to play my favorite sounder that I've ever made. And so for Over the Hump Day, we're going to talk about why the Pacers are going to get over the hump tonight and win on the road in Madison Square Garden.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! Hump day!
No, as the coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
I love that sounder. That's my favorite one. Mike Woodson could never quite get his Indiana Hoosiers over the hump. Rick Carlisle hasn't ran into that issue, though. He's done a great job of getting this Indiana Pacers team, just able to win, whether those games are at home or on the road. I mean, they've won 4 road games, right? 3? They beat, 4. They beat the Cavaliers on the road 3 times, and they won a game in Milwaukee as well. And we get Pacers Knicks game 1 tonight as they're going to look to go on the road and take game 1 from the New York Knicks. And they're going to. The Pacers are going to win tonight because they have this thing about them that helps them win game 1s. A lot of teams in the NBA play similarly. When you play the Oklahoma City Thunder, or if you watched the game last night, you knew that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was going to have the ball and initiate the offense, and the offense was probably going to start with a ball screen. When the Pacers play the Knicks tonight, you know that Jalen Brunson's going to have the ball a ton, and he's going to initiate the offense probably with a ball screen. Okay, when before the Timberwolves, went out to play last night, you knew that Julius Randle or Anthony Edwards was going to have the ball, and they were going to initiate the offense with a ball screen. Like, that is how so many teams in the NBA play. And then you run into a team like the Pacers. And yes, you know what they're going to do. You know that Tyrese Halliburton is going to initiate the offense most of the time, but the offense is so much more than just screen and roll reads followed by a shot. A lot of offenses are built off of that. And for the Pacers, they're not. And that's unique. I don't think anyone would deny that the Pacers are one of the most unique teams in the NBA, because you only play against this Pacers style of all 5 guys involved offensively, plus the relentless pressure that they put on you while you bring the ball up the floor. You're only playing against that style of basketball when you play against the Indiana Pacers, whereas against a lot of other teams, they look like 90% of the league. Their best player is going to initiate everything. I better recover to shooters quickly. And the offense is probably going to start with a ball screen. Okay, like that is an oversimplification of what most of these teams in the NBA do. And so when you play a lot of teams in the NBA that are similar, I think it makes it easier to adjust from series to series. Because you're playing the same style, the personnel is just a little bit different. Like going from playing the Bucks in the first round, where when Damian Lillard was healthy, it was a lot of Damian Lillard has the basketball and Giannis initiates the offense by setting a ball screen. Or they give the ball to Giannis, and they do a big, small kind of reversal ball screen. So you're going from that to then playing against the Cavaliers, where you know that Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell are going to initiate the offense, and it's probably going to start with a ball screen from either Jared Allen or Evan Mobley. Once again, I am very much oversimplifying how offenses in the NBA work. But then you play the Pacers, and it's not that at all. It's not. And I know that the Knicks have been watching film on the Pacers, and that's great, and they know what they're up against, and they know that it's going to take all 5 guys on defense to be locked in for all 24 seconds of the shot clock, which is very difficult. And I'm sure that they've been watching film, and the Knicks have been practicing on how to stop this Pacers team. But it's completely different watching it on film and actually having to stop it. It's like playing against the Golden State Warriors. Like, you sit around, you watch film, you go, all right, they're going to run Steph Curry off of a million screens. And the way that, the Warriors utilize Steph Curry, it is unique to every other major star in the NBA. And, you're going to sit around, you're going to watch it, and then all of a sudden you have to defend it. And now you're worried about guys slipping screens and getting layups or a fake dribble handoff from Draymond Green. And, oh, no, Steph Curry just got loose. Like, it just takes time to adjust to teams that play a unique style like the Warriors and the Pacers. And because of that, I expect for the Pacers to win tonight. I think part of why they beat the Cavaliers in game 1 and hung 121 points on them was because the Cavaliers hadn't seen an offense like the Pacers. And I think part of why they hung 117 points on the Bucks and beat a 117-98 in game 1 was because the Bucks hadn't seen an offense like the Pacers, and it took them a bit to adjust. I think it's part of why game 2 against Cleveland was much better than game 1. Cavaliers like, oh, we need to do this. Okay. And then they made adjustments, and then, the Pacers still found a way to win because they're just a tough and resilient bunch. I think we see something similar tonight. I think the Pacers have a big offensive night. I think they score over 120 points, and that powers them to a game 1 win on the road in Madison Square Garden. I've got some questions about game 1. What are we going to see from different players tactically? What are some of these teams going to do? I'm not going to get into the tactics because that's boring. I just want to bring them to your attention. That way you can have something a little extra to watch for tonight. So my 3 biggest questions about game 1 when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Hey, Mom.
Yeah?
I can't tell my mom. She'll never understand. I mean, how was I supposed to know he would share it with the whole school?
You can't help what you don't know. Tell the teens in your life they can talk to you about what's happening online.
Hey, you know you can tell me anything, right?
Okay, I need to show you something.
Learn more about online safety at internetcrimesagainstkids.com. A message from the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, sponsored by the Indiana State Police.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully your week is off to a nice start. I know mine is. And it's going to get better tonight after the Indiana Pacers win Game 1 tonight against the New York Knicks. And I've got big hopes tonight. I really like the Pacers tonight in Game 1. But, we'll have to wait around and see. Now, I do have questions about Game 1. How do these two teams come out? How do they defend each other? How, all those different types of things. And the biggest question, though, that I have about this game is who on the Indiana Pacers defends Jalen Brunson? It is going to be the most important part of this series. It is. I hope that it's Andrew Nembhard because, to say that he's the best, he has been the Pacers' best perimeter defender this year. And it would just make life so much easier on the Pacers if he can get the job done. It just makes everything easier because then you can leave Aaron Nesmith on Mikal Bridges. You can leave our guy, Pascal Siakam on OG Anunoby. It just makes things easier. But if Andrew Nembhard can't get it done, then Aaron Nesmith then has to be the one to probably defend Jalen Brunson most of the time, and then you have to cross-match, and you've got Andrew Nembhard probably having to guard Mikal Bridges, and then Mikal Bridges has a pretty major size advantage, and that's not good, and then things just become a little more problematic a little bit faster, and nobody wants that. So if Andrew Nembhard, who has improved as a defender, as far as I'm concerned, from last year to this year, and he has a real chance to prove that in this series because Jalen Brunson just chewed him up and spat him out last year. He got whatever he wanted when Andrew Nembhard defended him to a point to where they had to switch the matchup. They had to put Aaron Nesmith on him, and they had to move Andrew Nembhard onto somebody else. I don't remember who. They put him on, probably Dave Vincenzo, but, who cares? That was last year. And so if Andrew Nembhard, look, I don't expect him to shut down Jalen Brunson, a guy who has been nothing short of outstanding. But if he can just make life difficult, if he can just be solid and he can just survive defensively, then it'll make things easier for the Pacers, and I'll feel even better about them not only winning Game 1, but winning this series. Speaking of Jalen Brunson, and people are going to talk about this because people are very annoying. What are the Pacers going to do with Tyrese Halliburton? Where are they going to put him? On Josh Hart. Very simple. They don't put him on Josh Hart, I promise. And then, they won't ask the same thing about Jalen Brunson, who's a worse defender than Tyrese Halliburton is. Also, Karl Anthony Towns, not a good defender. Neither one of those guys have anyone that they can really guard. I guess that they'll put Karl Anthony Towns on Miles Turner, but if they go two bigs and they want to put Mitchell Robinson on Miles Turner, then how does that work? You going to put Karl Anthony Towns on Pascal Siakam? Come on now. Either way, the Pacers are going to make those two guys, Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, defend. Because that's just the way that their offense works. All five guys are involved. They make all five defenders play defense. And so I'm intrigued to see if they hunt them at all. Like in that previous series against the Cavaliers, if Jared Allen got switched onto Tyrese Halliburton, everything stopped. They cleared it out, and they let Tyrese Halliburton go one-on-one against Jared Allen, and he would usually make a play. If the Cavaliers switched and they got Pascal Siakam matched up on Darius Garland, then the Pacers would throw the ball down into the post and let Pascal Siakam post up Darius Garland and go get a bucket. And then if the Cavaliers switched, or if the Cavaliers helped, all of a sudden Pascal Siakam makes a pass and the Cavaliers are in rotation, and boom, the Pacers get an open shot. What is the split of the offense of hunting matchups and just running your offense, knowing that everyone has to guard one way or the other? We'll see. I'm very intrigued to kind of see how the Pacers go about attacking, Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. In terms of the Knicks attacking Tyrese Halliburton, I don't think that they're going to involve Josh Hart just to involve Josh Hart. I think, the biggest thing will be, can Tyrese Halliburton box him out and make sure he's not grabbing, 5 offensive rebounds? Because that is an area of concern for the Pacers in this series. The Knicks are an excellent offensive rebounding team, really just rebounding, period. But at the same time, I thought that the Pacers did a good job holding their own, rebounding the basketball against the Cavaliers. And the one game that they lost was the one game where they got crushed on the boards. And so if the Pacers can just be solid, like they don't have to win the rebounding battle, you just can't give up 12 offensive rebounds. If they do that, then they'll be fine. The other thing that I'm very intrigued to see is how deep is Rick Carlisle willing to go into his bench. He had games against the Bucks and the Cavaliers where he played 11 players, real minutes. Like, does he shorten the rotation at all, or does he stick with all 11 guys? And I think for me, I think he's going to stick with all 11, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some Jarris Walker in this series, just because he's a good rebounder. When he comes in off the bench, he rebounds very well. I think that you wouldn't mind having him defend an OG Anunoby or a Mikal Bridges, maybe not Bridges, but he's a big, strong dude. If the Knicks wanted to go big, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Jarris Walker on the floor to maybe try to defend Karl Anthony Towns, just because he's a strong, long, athletic guy who might be able to get up underneath Towns and give him some issues. So wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of Jarris Walker in the series. We'll see. They may throw him out there, and it may go horrendously right off the rip. That's very possible. Because as we know, Jarris Walker is kind of a very volatile performer. Sometimes he's awesome. Sometimes he's not very awesome. And he looked a little shaky in that series against the Cavaliers. So Pacers, Knicks tonight, 8 o'clock. I love the Pacers tonight. I think they hang 120 on the New York Knicks. The line for that game last time I checked was 4.5. With the New York Knicks being favored, I'm very intrigued to see if it's still 4.5. It is. The over/under is set at 123.5. I would take the over, even though if you wanted to take the under, because both teams have had 5 days off or more, then hey, I get it. All right. There's, in these last couple of minutes, I would like to rant about two things. Well, first, the tush push isn't going anywhere. It's sticking around, as it should. If you don't like the tush push, then find a way to stop it. It's just a quarterback sneak. That's literally all that it is. Teams have done the quarterback sneak for a very long time now. All right, if you don't like it, find a way to stop it. That is the very simple answer. That play, it's not going anywhere until someone gets hurt. And I hope that no one gets hurt on that play, but it's here to stay. Like there's no reason whatsoever for them to ban the tush push. Absolutely no reason whatsoever. The other thing that I think is very, very important and needs to be brought up, people are complaining about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and how many fouls he drew last night. That dude is an absolute stud. And he goes to the rim more than any other player in the NBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I know he took 7 free throws in the first half last night, or excuse me, in the first quarter. How many did he finish with? Let me pull that up really quickly, because I just see all these people on my timeline complaining. He gets all these calls and it's really frustrating and blah 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 blah. He took 14 free throws. 14. That's really not that many when you consider that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the NBA in drives per game. He leads the NBA in drives per game. Look, if I go to the rim 10 times and you only go to the rim twice, I'm probably going to get fouled more than you are. And I get it. People don't like it when, refs blow their whistle a ton and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think it's dumb. It's ever since the NBA started, the best players in the world tend to get a lot of calls. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is probably going to win MVP this year. And he's getting a lot of calls. Like that's pretty normal. Donovan Mitchell got a ton of calls in that series against the Pacers because he's the best player on the floor. Okay, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Luka, Jokic, you can just keep going. They all get plenty of calls because the best players in the NBA tend to get calls. And then you throw in the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes to the rim more than anyone else in the league. It just makes sense that he's going to get fouled a lot. Also, I love how relentless that dude is. He took 14 free throws. He also took 27 shots. Like that dude just doesn't stop attacking the rim. And when you play that way, you're just naturally going to put yourself in a position to take more free throws. Also, the Thunder, I believe they only took 5 more free throws than Minnesota did. And Minnesota took 51 threes. The Timberwolves took 30 more threes than Oklahoma City last night. And the Thunder only took 5 more free throws. That's kind of insane. The Thunder probably should have taken more than what they did. So I'm tired of all of the complaining about it. Like when you go to the rim and you're one of the best players in the world, like you're going to get fouled. And if there's a question, you're going to get the call. It's just how it is. So people, please stop complaining about it. And if you complained about it last night and you're a Pacers fan, you're going to really hate it tonight because Jalen Brunson is going to get a bunch of calls and he's going to flop and he's going to flail and he's going to throw his head back. And it's going to be super annoying and frustrating because that's just what Jalen Brunson does. And there's this thing in the NBA where if you're a small guy, you just tend to get away with more stuff. And by that, I mean you can foul more and they won't call it. And if you get hit, they're more likely to call it because small dudes, we just tend to go flying a little bit more. So once again, Pacers, Knicks tonight. I like the Pacers. I think they win. Pacers in 6. Can't wait. Can't wait for it. Oh, man. Tomorrow, 10 to noon, I'm going to have great stuff on that game, Pacers and Knicks game 1. I'll get you ready for Thunder and Timberwolves game 2 as well. And it's going to be great. So make sure you're tuned in tomorrow, 10 to noon on The Real Jonathan Smith Show. If you want a short series preview, head over to the My Take Is YouTube page. I've got a Pacers and Knicks very short series preview up over there. I've got stuff on game 1 from last night as well. So make sure you head over. My Take Is over on YouTube. Subscribe and check all that out. When we come back here in about 5 minutes, it'll be the Dan Dockett Show. Eddie White, 1 o'clock, getting you ready for game 1 tonight. And then Ken Sterling joins at 2 o'clock for the Power Hour over on the Dan Dockett Show. Once again, the Real Jonathan Smith Show tomorrow from 10 to noon. Be here for the best breakdown of Pacers Knicks game 1. I'm going to have it for you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.